here's the news from the BBC. Images show U.S. military building floating pier for Gaza aid. Ah, yes. It's just humanitarian aid. That's all they're doing. All they're doing is building a floating pier out at sea. And there's a jetty, a holding area under construction. And that's what we're doing. See, the U.S., they're so nice. They're going to be sending meals to the poor people of Gaza. And the reality is, this floating pier will make contact with the coast, which will be secured by the IDF. And if you'd like to understand why this is a U.S. invasion of Gaza aligned with the IDF, I throw it to Matt Gaetz with this incredible exchange with the Secretary of Defense, outright just admitting it. Here you go.
Ms. Locken just said there'll be about 1,000 U.S. service members operating a pier system off of Gaza. How many of them will have guns, Mr. Secretary?
Well, typically all of the deployed service members carry guns, and they have the ability to protect themselves if challenged.
So if someone from land in Gaza shoots at our service members who are on the $320 million pier that we're building, you're telling me our service members can shoot back?
They have the right to return fire to protect themselves. Now,
well, do we think that's like? So now I want to move to the likelihood that you think someone from land in Gaza might shoot at our service members on this pier. Do you think that that's a likely scenario?
That's possible, yes.
This is a very telling moment, Mr. Secretary, because you've said something that's quite possible that could happen, right? Shots from Gaza on our service members, and then the response, our armed service members shooting live fire into Gaza. That is a possible outcome here so that we can become the Port Authority and run this pier. Right?
That's correct. You know, I expect that we will always have the ability to protect ourselves. Don't you think that counts as boots
on the ground? President Biden told the country that we weren't going to have boots on the ground in Gaza.
And we won't.
Okay, but you guys parse the distinction between, like when Americans think boots on the ground, they think Americans in harm's way or engaged actively in a conflict. You guys seem to be sort of saying that boots on a pier connected to the ground, connected to service members shooting into Gaza, doesn't count as boots on the ground?
It does not.
I think you're the American people have a different
do we remember when the Pirates of the
people
Parlay
shooting
in the
into
third Pirates of the Caribbean movie, Davy Jones could only stand in a bucket? And it technically didn't count of him being on dry land.
Right.
That's apparently now U.S. military policy.
This is already a moot point, though, because there was just 5 days ago, I'm looking up on militarytimes.com, there were already mortar attacks. The pier was already taking mortars from Gaza.
Wow.
So this is already a moot point. This was Thursday, April 25th. I'll put it in the Slack so you can grab it. But yeah, I mean, this is already actively happening. The Military Times was saying.
When was it? 4 days ago?
It says 5 days ago, but yeah. I mean, U.S.-led Gaza humanitarian aid pier comes under fire, UN officials say. An under-construction pier for a U.S.-led project to bring aid to the Gaza Strip came under fire Wednesday, forcing UN officials to take shelter there, Israeli and UN officials said. So that means that
it's almost like they think it's the U.S. military building a pier off the edge of the ocean, which is exactly what it is.
There's going to be gunfights, right? If they're going, because the aid that they're intending to give is going to be taken by Hamas, because that's what's happened to all the other aid that's been sent there.
Like, if the IDF are actively involved in patrolling the place, that isn't going to deter the Palestinians from firing on it, because they're currently at war with the IDF.
And they look at Americans and they're like, well, shoot at them too, because they're giving them military support to Israel.
We are funding Israel.
Yeah.
We're funding their defense. We are in a joint operation to build a pier on their coast after the IDF invaded and is going to secure the coast, meaning they're moving straight through Gaza. Yeah. We're already under attack. U.S. troops are authorized, according to the Secretary of Defense, to return fire. And it doesn't count as boots on the ground because they're technically on ground we built.
It's so stupid.
Well, it reminds me of those fights you have with your sibling where it's like, I'm not touching you, but I'm very much in your personal space, and so I'm going to scream at the top of my lungs. You can understand where people look at this as a form of aggression. And this is costing like $320 million, right? This isn't just like throwaway cash that, you know, we decided, oh, we'll see what happens. We'll see if it takes gunfire, we'll pretend this, that, and the other. It's a serious investment of money that I'm sure a million towns across the U.S. would have said, hey, we could use that. Instead, it's just being thrown away overseas to pretend we're not participating in a conflict that we're clearly participating in.
What do you think would happen if China built a pier off the coast of Oregon and then announced that they would join with the Russian forces that are currently stationed in the area to connect the pier to the coast? That is an act of war.
Apparently, Lloyd Austin would say, well, they don't have boots on the ground, so it's okay.
Well,
I mean, this is not a great stance for the U.S. military.
We haven't been invaded.
We haven't been invaded. They're just sort of near us, but there's nothing we can do. It's fine. Like, it's ridiculous.
Until you said Russian, I was going to say, well, then the Democrat states are going to back it because it's the Chinese. But there you go.
Right. The idea is like Russia enters through Canada or something. They've actively entered our territory and look. The United States considers the official government of Hamas, of Gaza, which is Hamas, to be a terrorist organization we are in active conflict with. That is the elected government of the Gaza Strip.
They're currently holding Americans. Like all these idiots on college campuses talking, like supporting Hamas and supporting Gaza. They're literally supporting terrorists that currently hold American citizens. Like, that is, I don't know the last time there was American citizens being held by a terrorist group where Americans were saying the terrorists are right.
Well, and the Biden administration is not endearing themselves to any of the protesters right now. All of the protesters who feel as though Israel and the Biden administration are being too aggressive towards Palestinians who have a right to this area are going to look at this and say, you are now closing in from both sides. We hate this even more. How could this possibly be a good move for Biden long term if he wants to get reelected?
Well,
real quick, this is what I was waiting for. Mikey 197799 in the chat saying this headline is clickbait, which is exactly the problem this country has. We have deployed U.S. troops armed onto the coast of Gaza as our ally has invaded the territory and gone to war with the official government of the Gaza Strip, and we are already taking fire, and our troops are authorized to return fire. There is no reality outside of your 1984 doublespeak where this is anything other than the U.S. invasion of Gaza. Listen. We control, I think, 11 miles off the coast? That's the international recognized coastline boundaries for every country. We are on the coast. We are building a pier to connect to the coast to be secured by the IDF. We are aligned and allied with Israel. We have teamed up with Israel in their invasion of Gaza. Everyone called it a ground invasion of Gaza. When the IDF went in, it was Israel's ground invasion of Gaza. We have now assisted them financially with weapons, and now we are building a pier to bring in supplies. And they say, but it's for humanitarian aid. I don't believe it for 2 seconds. Y'all live in crazy world if you think this is anything other than the U.S. getting supplies to the IDF.
Well, all of politics is a choice, and this is something that you've just highlighted what you said just before Tim put the chatter rightfully in his place. They have made the choice to clearly provoke hostile forces here while also actively funding them. And they're doing so, and I know democratic consent is a farce in all of our respective countries these days, but without any democratic consent on any side. Like, for the last few days, you specifically have been talking about how essentially the post-war narrative has been exhausted the further you get from the inciting incident. Many of the wars that you opposed while you were as part of the Occupy system has diminished your faith in the State Department. But then on both sides of Gen Z, not only have you had surveys out where they say, I don't know anything about the Holocaust because the American education system is so poor, but on one side of Gen Z, the particularly like diverse diaspora that have bought into post-colonial narratives and all of the woke stuff that's been fed to them via TikTok algorithms, they are fully paid on the side of Hamas, or they just want to jump on the social trend because it's a luxury belief. On the other side, as you said, they're looking at the amount of money that is being spent, and they're saying, hey, for example, over in the UK, to get a house, it's 11 times the average income. And I'm looking at that and going, okay, highest tax burden since the Second World War. All the public infrastructure is crumbling. You're mass importing people. And yet we're now spending money on Ukraine and Israel? Excuse me, what? I'm not wedded to this post-war narrative. I'm wedded to me establishing what those boomers had when they decided to sign me up for this before I was born. So I don't care about this. And so now they're marching straight into what seems like an armed conflict with zero consent of the people they expect would be conscripted to fight it.
There's a word for this. I'm going to ask all of you and perhaps the audience, what is the word used to describe when a military force establishes a base of operations on a beach?
Beachhead.
It's called the beachhead. A beachhead is a military position on an enemy coast from which an attack can be launched. Now, if U.S. troops are firing into Gaza, even if it's because they were being fired at first, I'm sorry, whether there's active firing or not, this is the U.S. establishing a beachhead in the Gaza Strip. It's an invasion.
Which we knew it was from the day they announced it, right? I mean, I don't know that anyone really bought the Biden administration being like, we're going to put a pier there and we're going to send in aid. You know, we'll float it across the river. We won't touch the land. Everyone knew exactly what was happening from the beginning. And I think this is the consistent reality of the Biden administration, which is they think they can sell anything and you're going to believe it. I was listening to this interview done with, it was the New York Times interviewing young progressive activists, asking them, are you going to support Biden? And I found it really interesting because they specifically interviewed two different climate activists. And one said, you know, I don't like it. I'm a radical feminist, but I'm going to. The other one was like, no, because I am specifically against what's going on in Palestine, and I would rather vote for Donald Trump than signal to the Biden administration that it is okay what's happening there. I mean, there are people who feel this so radically to their core, whether they fully understand the implications or not, that there is no way for the Biden administration to continue to sell this as something that they are doing as a humanitarian act. People view it as a form of aggression.
I just real quick want to add, we got a couple super chats, which we'll read in full later on in the super chat section, but someone made a joke about the Gazans complained the American MREs were a war crime, so they're going to be bringing in pizzas. And then Lieutenant Dust says, I was an infantryman. Those MREs are a war crime. But I just want to stress to people who aren't in the military, MREs are fun. And it's like a fun thing to buy online and like have with your friends and open up and you're all laughing. Yeah. And if you're actually in, you're like, oh, not these again.
Yeah.
I'm just impressed that for once, James Biden didn't get an infrastructure project deal in the Middle East.
Oh, I know. He must have been upset.
Yeah, I know. I do wonder who exactly is making money out of this from either Congress or the administration.
I got to be honest, don't speak too soon. I would not be surprised to find out that, you know, Joe Biden's bro has something, no matter how minor it may be. Some kind of contract. Maybe it's to deliver paper plates. Who knows? But that's how his family operates, so I wouldn't be surprised. We're going to find out in like a year. It's like, oh, Hunter was on the board of directors for the energy company that was supplying fuel, and his brother, Jimmy Boy, was in charge of the contractors or something.
We had almost the exact same thing during lockdown. So Matt Hancock, who used to be the health secretary until he was caught on the CCTV camera having less social distancing than he prescribed with a woman who wasn't his wife, he was also found to have given out contracts for PPE from a university friend and then pay for the disposal of said PPE to his sister's medical waste disposal company. And it's just like, right, okay, so you're just setting policy to make sure that you get a kickback. Also, funnily enough, in the UK, none of our parliamentarians have to report their stock earnings. Unlike at least in the US, where you know they're insider trading.
I just pulled up the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of beachhead: an area on a hostile shore occupied to secure further landing of troops and supplies. Foothold. We've established a beachhead. I mean, nobody wanted this. Nobody signed off on this. It was not. This war is not approved by Congress. We are. When was the last time a war was declared? It was like Vietnam or something, right?
No, Vietnam was a police action. The last time a war was declared was World War II.
Wow.
Yeah. Even the Korean War was a police action.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.